Welcome to this episode of Mastering Military Life. Today, I am joined with military spouse Brittany Mack, who is also our Camp Lejeune PCS Pay It Forward ambassador. And we're going to talk about the obstacles that our military families are facing heading to Camp Lejeune. Brittany, thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you for having me.
All right, girl. So give me your history. How long were you guys in? How many PCSs? Where were you guys stationed? Let's start with military life.
So my husband is almost to retirement, so he still is active duty. He keeps saying he's going to drop papers and we'll see if it happens, but we are at like the 19-year mark. So we are almost there. But I mean, we have been very fortunate. We have been at Camp Lejeune the first, and then we went to Quantico, and then we had orders to go to Bridgeport. They changed our orders I was already on the way there to drop the kids off to stay with my mom for a week, and they changed our orders. So we had 2 weeks to find a home back in Camp Lejeune, which it ended up working out great because we knew the area. We love here, but it was a lot finding a house in 2 weeks. But it ended up working out, and now we have our own little oasis out here in the country.
Oh, that's wonderful. And so Camp Lejeune, where are you guys seeing a lot of military families coming from?
So we have a lot come from Japan. So coming from overseas, and then also from like Pendleton in California.
Okay. And what's the biggest adjustment for families who are coming from Camp Pendleton to Camp Lejeune?
So BAH, there's a big difference, but there's also a big difference in prices. And there's a lot more areas here. So we are pushed up against the coast, but we have like, if you're willing to do like a 30-minute commute, you can have more of that country feel where you get a little more bang for your buck. So we have more of those areas that I feel like they don't there because it is so bigger.
Yeah, so condensed,
Yeah.
populated in Southern California for sure.
Yeah. Yeah.
So are you seeing a lot of your families kind of go 30 minutes out to be able to find a home that works for them?
They do. And it all just depends on them because sometimes they want to keep their commute around 15 minutes, which we can definitely do. You're just more kind of like in the heart of Jacksonville, depending on where they're going to be working because there's multiple gates here. So wherever you're like kind of entering is kind of where we want to have you be by.
Yes, let's talk about that a little bit. Can you give me an idea of what communities are around which gates?
So some of the gates have changed their hours. Like Hubert was a really big area, but Hubert Gate has now changed their hours where they're not open all the time. So they're having to go down like into the Jacksonville gate.
Oh my goodness, how much does that add to their commute time?
It's depending, but it's like probably 10, 15 minutes to some of them.
A decent amount.
Yeah, especially when they were like 5 minutes from the gate and then
Hmm.
they're not open all the time now. So they're adding another 10.
Is that normal where you see the gate times change, or is that like unprecedented and you don't know when it's going to come back?
Oh, I don't know when it's going to come back, honestly, because it's never been like a huge gate. Like the visitor center's not there. It was just kind of like a small gate to help people kind of get on base and get around. So it's definitely something that's been newer. We've been dealing with this for I think it's about 2 years now.
Oh, wow. Every military family has three options for housing when they PCS, right? They can live on base, they can rent a home, and they can ultimately buy. And so I'd love to talk about those three options and what they look like at Camp Lejeune. Can we start with base housing? What's kind of the general consensus around what life is like living on base?
So base housing, there is multiple different communities that they can live on. Depending on their time frame, really kind of depends which one they're going to get because some of the wait times for base housing are almost a year long, which I don't know what military family has a year to prepare for a move, but
Yeah.
we've never done that. So it's definitely a little hard sometimes. But I mean, some people love it because there are, more events and there's like the pool and things like that.
Obviously, a lot of other bases, we see issues with mold and kind of conditions and upkeep. Is that something that's still kind of prevalent and maybe talked about behind the scenes at Camp Lejeune?
Yeah, it's a pretty big issue here. Mold is like the number one thing. I've had a lot of families that have had to leave base housing because they've just gotten so sick that they couldn't stay in the house. So we've had to find them other housing outside of base because when housing was coming in to fix it, they told me that they were just covering it up. So they
Yeah.
were still getting sick from all the mold. So it was really hard for them, especially with they have young kids. So like
Yeah.
having young ones in like the mold, it's just a really bad recipe. That's like been the biggest thing, like feedback wise that I've gotten from base. is.
Do you hear that a lot from families coming in? That's like, we would live on base, but like, it's just, we don't feel like it's safe for our family.
Some do. Some think it's just easier. So they do that. And then they call me, in a year and was like, I'm so sick. I can't do this anymore. And we have to move them, out. And now they're paying for that move because the military is not going to pay for them to move off of base housing. So it's kind of like a financial burden as well because they're doing that double move.
Right. Curious. When people have to break their base housing lease to leave for whatever reason, let's just say it's no longer the right fit for their family or there's mold. You could go either way.
Yeah.
How is that handled? Have you been able to easily help people exit without a huge financial strain other than having to obviously move their stuff?
Yeah, I mean, it is like a year kind of that they want you to stay in the house. Now, there are special circumstances where we can say, like, they are sick, like, they cannot stay in this home to help get them out. But I mean, it kind of depends because our base housing just got bought out by a different company. So the feedback that I've gotten from that has not been as easily to work with.
Who was base housing prior and who are they now?
I think it was AMC before, and now it's Hunt that owns most of the base housing communities.
Okay.
So I've heard that like they're getting charged more for like fees and things for like move out that they weren't before, and like things aren't getting updated. And like one of the biggest thing that people tell me is their carpet. Like it just, they never replace the carpet. So everyone's like grossed out by the carpet, just because it's like so old.
Yeah.
They're like, it's technically not damaged, but like it's worn. And, how many more
It's someone
people have
else's
been?
skin flakes, okay? Like,
Yeah.
let's just be honest. And here's the
Yeah.
thing, we could pay to get it cleaned ourselves, but like, why would I pay? Like,
Mhm.
shouldn't military housing be upheld to the same standards as typical privately owned landowners or homeowners, right? Or
Yep.
landlords, sorry, landlords. That is the correct word. Let's say, a military family's like, I'm really looking to rent in town. How does the BAH measure up there?
So it does, you're not going to get everything covered all the time, especially if they are wanting a bigger home. So that's the thing. If you got like a $50 budget, we can definitely get you in a rental. It's not going to cover all your power and water on every single home. But if you're a little more flexible and you go maybe out a little, like 10 minutes further, or you do like a 3 bedroom with a bonus instead of a 4, like we can get you to be pretty close to have that BAH cover everything.
Okay, that's wonderful. And so what families do you feel like, or what military members do you feel like are most apt to rent? Is it because they are only going to be there for 2 years, they own a house somewhere else? Like, what are the types of families that you're seeing like that's the best choice for them?
They think it's easier a lot of the time. So they're like, well, I'll just rent. So then I don't have to deal with it. I don't have to deal with the upkeep, or I don't have to be responsible for it. And I get it. But I've had a lot that do that for a year. And then they're like, I'm tired. My rent just got raised. I'm just going to buy a home. And now that move, they're paying for again.
Yeah. Let's
So,
talk about this. So this is something that gets under my skin. Okay. 10 years ago, it was a lot more difficult to get access to BAH rates, in my opinion. Okay, I would say 5 years ago, okay? Access to information is a lot easier, and landlords are a lot smarter, as well as we see a lot of institutional investing near our bases, right? So
yep,
the moment that new BAH rates come out, typically we see that adjustment and in our local kind of landlords and what they're charging, right? Which is infuriating as a military family because it's like, even if I got even like $50 more, right? That could create a little bit of quality of life. But when they're always raising that ceiling to meet exactly what BAH is, it just becomes difficult for families to get ahead, pay down debt, put money towards savings. It's like one of the most infuriating things for me as someone who sees this across the entire country.
yeah. And I mean, I have families where they're like literally like they don't get it. Like they're raising my rent $100, but like nothing's changing in our house. Like they're not going to
Mhm.
do anything different. They're not going to cover anything. They're just charging me another $100 a month and I can't afford it. And I was like, I get it. But unfortunately, there's nothing that we can do to make it not go up. If
Yeah,
they're going to redo their rent, they're going to redo their rent.
interesting. Wouldn't that be an interesting bill? Wouldn't that be
Yeah.
interesting under the
Yes.
Service Members Relief Act that if a service member enters into a long-term lease with you, that it cannot be increased per BH?
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah, because it
Note,
hurts a lot of families.
DOD, listen.
Yeah, right.
Lawmakers, this one's for you.
Yeah.
It's those little things that make a huge difference though, right? Well, look, guys, because the reality is when you buy a home and you have a fixed monthly payment that doesn't go up every single year like a rent does, right? That's what creates a quality of life over time. And if we're kind of having a quality of life crisis in the military, like that's a reasonable like option.
Yeah, because I have a lot of families where like we do have to look at like food distributions and things like that to get them by because it's so expensive. And if your rent's going to go up another $100, like, and you have kids, like that means no activities. That means no going on trips. That means they don't get to do that extra little thing because your landlord just decided BAH went up, so your rent's going up, you know?
Yeah. Let's talk about buying a home, and then I want to come back to the food pantry because every base has different resources, and we know that this is a big issue impacting our military families. It's something like 1 in 4 families use supplementary food to support their family's foods needs. So, but let's talk about buying a house, right? Because ironically, it's interesting to talk about like buying a house, but I go to the food pantry, right?
Yeah.
When you're using the VA home loan and houses are sitting on the market a little bit longer and I can get someone to pay my closing costs, I can actually get something for less potentially than what it costs for me to rent. So what are
Yeah.
you seeing at Camp Lejeune?
So it's definitely like those ones that are super pretty that are just listed and they have multiple offers, like they're harder to get those things. But like honestly, the cost that it takes to rent a home, it's cheaper to get into buying a home if we can get all your closing costs. Because if you're looking at renting, you're looking anywhere from $3,000 to $5,000 just to move into that rental,
That's
which
what
is a
people
lot
don't
of
understand,
money.
guys. You pay a rent, like when you rent a home, you pay up front, right? We have our deposit and the first month's rent. That's usually what it costs you to get in there. So that's the $3,000 to $5,000 Brittany's talking about. But when you buy a home, it is retroactive. Watch our video on building wealth with your BAH with Eric Magnus, right? And
Yeah.
so when you buy and then you close, your next mortgage payment isn't due until the next month. And
Mhm.
so you're not only you're paying, afterwards, but you usually skip a payment. We see a lot of our families then pocket that to help with emergency expenses, whether it's like move-in costs or something like that. And so some people don't realize the upfront cost of renting is more expensive.
Yep. They think it's so much easier, but it costs so much. Like I just had one family, they're like, I can't afford to rent a house. Like she's like, it's cheaper for me to buy a house. And I was like,
Mhm.
I get it. She's like, even the monthly payment and I'm getting more space to buy it if you can get my closing costs covered. And I was like, we definitely can because like I always have a list of homes that are offering incentives and ones that are good candidates to ask for those incentives. So it's definitely out there. It's just finding the right fit for you and your family.
Yeah. So with finding the right fit for people's family, we obviously rolled out the personalized PCS plans recently for Pay It Forward, which to me is just a game changer, completely changing the game. Would that be the best way for people to kind of tap in and see what's available at Camp Lejeune?
It is because I always say like we need to have A, B, and C plan because military life is either moving at a turtle speed or 100 miles an hour, and there's no in between. There's no like time to think. So we need to have all of your options. So even if you're like, I'm going to live on base, we need to have you set up on a home search and a rental search. Like you should be talking to the lender. And it's not because like you're going to ever be pushed into buying. It's just so if you do need to switch gears, you've already gone through everything in like a calm time where you're not stressed and overwhelmed with everything. So you can process it and you're not going to be overwhelmed when we're like, okay, base housing isn't going to work. The timeline's not going to work for us. We're going to buy a house or we're going to move right over to renting. We already have our search set. We've already talked to everyone. This is the house we want to go to. It just makes it so much easier for them to process.
Just keep 100% of your options open. I often tell people, look, not many military families want to buy a home, just like what we talked about, right? But
Mhm.
they have to buy a home, whether it's because there's something not in their price point for renting. They realize it's going to cost them twice as much to rent up front. They have pets. It's not in the right school district. It's not in the right timeline, right? And so if you just keep all options open, then you can make the best decision for you and your family. Look, especially at Pay It Forward, guys, every other program like ours only is invested in the success of you buying and selling so they get a commission. Sorry, I'm just saying it, right? That's not the vibe here. How we measure success is 100% of our military families finding the right home for them, which is why we say let's keep 100% of our options open, and then whatever's right for you and your family, that's the opportunity you have to take advantage of, right?
Yep.
Make sure that you're gonna not be living in the Walmart parking lot.
Yeah, and that's like the biggest thing. I know even for us, like I looked at my husband and like everything was packed in our house and we like we weren't going to unpack it. And we like just had mattresses on the floor. And I was like, we're going to be homeless. Do you understand that? Like, we are going to be homeless. Like, because we were in a rental, they had sold the rental. And I was like, we have 2 weeks. And like, these people are coming to move into this house. Like, this is like a squatter, a homeless situation. Like, we got to go. And like it ended up working out, but like it's such a big stressor. And I always tell my husband, I was like, I wish we had the pay it forward when we were moving here because it would have been like just somebody that's going to give you all the information, that's going to be honest with you. So then you can take everything and find out what's best for you and your family is like the biggest stress relief ever for military families because like we have so much going on. You're uprooting your whole life. You're gonna throw your whole family into a whole new situation and a new school and new
Yeah.
everything. It's a
And
lot.
also, you want to feel like someone's on your side, right? Like everything else is so transactional. It's like upload this app, upload this document, you talk to that person, then go talk to that person. Like no one's in the journey with you. I feel like that's also a big role of our ambassador. That it's like, look, you're uploading to the app, you're talking to those people, and I'm with you all along the way. That's the idea of like never PCS alone, right? It's because like I'm your point person. And yes, there are things that you're going to have to do on your own for this PCS move to be successful, but
Yeah.
ultimately, you're not alone. I'm the person that you message to vent. I'm the person
Yep.
who can help you overcome obstacles. I have connections here at base. So if something's not getting done, I can like whisper behind the scenes and say, hey, what's going on? Right.
Yeah.
It's just a completely different experience than being alone.
Yeah. And like if you're not getting proper information, because like I know we got a lot of like bad information, even though like we knew the area, we had been here before. Like people are like, oh, it changed in this and this and this. And we're like, oh my gosh, what are we doing? Like, why are we going back to this?
Right.
And then like we went back and we're like, it's none of this was even true. We were getting terrible information, terrible insight, and no one was like boots on the ground here seeing what was actually happening. And or they don't understand military life.
Yeah.
It's just a lot easier having someone that understands it, gets it, and is gonna honestly help you and your family.
Agreed. Agreed. If there was one thing that you wanted to tell a Marine family who is PCSing this year, what would you want them to know?
Just fill out your PCS plan. People are always like, "Oh, I don't know." I was like, "It literally, it's a conversation. Like, it's not anything for you to be sold to. It's not anything for you to be steered any direction. It's getting all the information, and it's also going over like what this area is because we're pushed up against the coast. So we have a lot of towns that you could potentially be living in, and depending on where you're going to be on base is going to depend kind of where you want to be looking. So it helps narrow that down. And Zillow isn't going to show you that. They're not going to show you where the gates are. Hey, don't go down Western in the middle of the day because everyone just got off and it's busy.
Yeah. Yeah. It's like your inside man, if you will.
Yeah. Yeah.
I
And
love it.
like those little tips just help a lot because otherwise you get into that house and then you're there for 2 months and you're like, oh my gosh, I hate this. And then you have to move again. And, you know,
I think the worst case scenario for our military families is a mid-station move.
yeah.
There's so many worst case scenarios. One, being taken advantage of with rental scam, still happening today, guys,
It's
around the
everywhere.
country. It is everywhere. Military families are especially targeted. We are looking at houses remotely. It seems like a good deal. We need to move fast. We send the deposit, and oh my God, that house doesn't even exist. It is still happening to this day. Okay. That's worst case scenario number one. Worst case scenario number two in my mind is a mid-station move. Is I moved into base and now there's mold and my family is sick and I have to pack my life up. I have to go make other friends. My kids potentially have to go to different schools. It's so disruptive, right? Or I rented my landlord's a POS and now I have to, right, I have to go buy or I have to go pay. So just having that more accurate information up front is so powerful to increase the likelihood of you finding the right place for you and your family and decrease the likelihood of you being disrupted mid-move, like
Yeah.
mid-station.
Well, and it's not cheap to move. And I don't know, I'm a terrible military spouse because I hate moving. Like I throw away everything because I'm like, I don't want that anymore. I don't
Yeah,
need
I would be the same. I'm not organized enough
it.
to do it any differently.
No, is it? I'm just like, oh, forget it. Like it's just too much work. Throw it away. And then you have to
Yeah.
buy it again, which then it's like more money. And it's already like budgets are so tight. Like renting a
Yeah.
truck's expensive. Like moving is gonna break
Packing things
you
up.
and your family.
Yes.
Like it's
So let's
just
talk about everything being expensive, right? So how the food distribution at Camp Lejeune, know that there are definitely hot pockets around the country of different bases where it hits a little bit harder and more families are having to turn to these kind of supplemental food pantries. Are there local resources? Can people get access to that through Camp Lejeune PCS Pay It Forward?
Yeah, so I do have that. If people ever send me a message, like there's different like drive up ones that happen. There's also little the pop-up pantries that are there. They even have like some that are for like baby diapers and things like that, and like pet pantries. So if they need pet food, there's access to get things like that. And they're all over. So if you live in Jacksonville and you know, have a 10-minute commute, there's something that we can find you around there that we can connect you to get that.
Love that. Well, Brittany, thank you so much for joining me today. I hope that there is someone just like you who is sitting on their couch who's like, we're going to be homeless. What do we do? And they listen to this episode and they listen to, and they, plug in, they get into the group, they do the PCS plan, and they just no longer feel alone. That is the goal of this whole thing, right? Is for
Mhm.
PCS Pay It Forward. So no one feels alone in their PCS ever again. So thank you so much for
Yeah.
joining me.
Thank you so much.